like it in movies where the symbol that you're looking at is actually touching their head, like the outline of their body is literally merging, because a film is two-dimensional, so
Right.
the objects that are moving behind them can sometimes sort of come in and out of their bodies, from your perspective when you're watching. And that seems to me to be a stronger sort of resonator than something that's just sort of cutting from one scene to another.
Right.
Here's Robin Tunney and here's a zebra. That's less interesting to me than a zebra sort of actually coming out of her head, which it is in this film. And then in the House MD, I don't know if you've ever heard of that show.
No.
It's a doctor show that's very popular in America. She's in the pilot episode, the first episode, and she's called a zebra because medical anomalies are called zebras in I don't know, medical vernacular. It's like if you're a doctor, you call people who have odd diseases that you don't know what they are, zebras. So she's connected to zebras in two films. And Valis, Philip K. Dick's higher consciousness being, or alien, or computer from the future, was originally called Zebra. So there's an interesting zebra. Yeah, it was originally called Zebra. He then changed it to Valis later on. So zebra is an interesting symbol, I find, of higher consciousness, and
Well, that's right. I mean, it is a kind of a, well, I mean, I guess we shouldn't call it checkerboard in that instance, but the black and the white again, of course, coming together or being symbolized in one creature like that. That's pretty interesting, actually.
And if you look at the tarot card of the Chariot, the Rider-Waite tarot card, the classic deck, the two sphinxes that draw the Chariot have the Nemes, the Pharaoh Nemes, that distinctive blue and gold striped headdress that the Pharaoh would wear.
Yeah.
Is depicted on the Chariot card, which is very interesting because the Chariot is something that comes up in my work a lot as well. As the checker cab, as you were mentioning the checkers, the checker chariot, classic checker cab, and horse-drawn chariots, all sorts of vehicles, basically chariots, keep coming up, and chariots of the gods, sort of.
Oh yeah.
The symbols of UFOs and things like that. These sphinxes on that tarot card I'm talking about have the black and white stripes around their heads, just like a zebra. So I find that very interesting.
Oh, indeed. There's so many different connections going on all the time, and as you say, I guess it's a balance between kind of the way to approach it in a way, I guess, is that okay, the more you look into something and the more detailed and the more focused you become on just one thing, obviously enough, the more of that you discover everywhere. And I mean, that kind of also in a way opens up a whole different idea of what we are a part of as if we talk about existence, because in many cases I think that if we spend enough time and if we look at something focused enough, we are going to discover all of these incredible connections to everything else, just because of the nature of how reality probably is composed, if you will. If we look at it from a holographic theory, then that makes perfect sense in a way,
Yeah, and if the Zen masters and the sages and the enlightened people who you hear talk, or if they're correct, they say that we are consciousness, we are awareness, right? Our minds cut things up into things, Everything actually bleeds into each other. It's all actually one continuum, everything. You and the external world, every object you see, it's consistently changing. It's only, the computer screen right in front of me or my sock will one day completely deteriorate and become all its constituent parts, and it'll become something else. Everything is this sort of, moving, consistently changing, going in and out of each other.
Yeah.
All the things that are inside of us become part of other things, and so everything is sort of bleeding in and out of each other. We just cut it up in our minds into distinct things. The idea of thing itself comes from mind and the way that our mind works. But beyond that, there is that which allows us to be aware of things, the actual consciousness that we are, the very fabric, that everything is imposed on, that it emanates from. So we are the consciousness, the pure consciousness. And when we're looking at things and we are paying attention to things, then that is our true nature. So when you're looking at a thing and you start to allow it to just be without your mind cutting it up into the usual mundane criteria that you would have for the thing, you can start to see how it's actually bleeding in real time in the present moment as you're sitting there into everything else. And synchromysticism is allowing you to see that by giving new context to, things that were generally only allowed to be in one box. You couldn't go Robin Tunney, Aleister Crowley, Pyramid. You're just insane. But and maybe a lot of people probably still think that. But that's the point. It's this consciousness is growing and waking up, and we can see this. And I think synchromysticism, through synchronicity, helps to show how we're all this one continuum, and you can actually learn so much depth about things, about ideas, about concepts, and about theories by allowing your usual mind process to let go of its regular conditioned way of grouping everything together in this consensus trance way. There's society has a way that it condones you must think about things, right?
Yeah.
Or it's appropriate to associate these thoughts with these thoughts. But if you do it in another way, then no, that's wrong and that's madness, and it's basically, that's a prison for your mind to be there. That's why society is blind and allows all this madness to go on, because it's crazy and it's blind, and it allows this dynamic universe that we're all embedded in and we're part of to just, be ignored.
Yeah.
Your mind just cuts it all out and ignores it, when, you can actually see it's amazing. Every single moment is amazing if you allow it to be.
Indeed. And it feels to me that, everything that we touch or create rather becomes part of that. And I think for a human mind at this point, it's also easier to look at something that we have created, like a film, like an art piece of work, an artwork, music, what have you, because it is, in a way, it's more confined because it comes out of us in a way, and we can break it down more easily than break down the entire world, let's say, and a film in that sense becomes easier to look at or focus on and break down, and and I also think that because what we create is still a part of the overall fabric of reality, I think that we can also see these kind of powerful, we can call them symbols or memes or even the archetypes in some sense, that these are trying to reach out through the work that we are creating in order to either communicate or either to actually just make themselves more powerful in our world. I don't know. I mean, there's another interesting kind of component to all this, and that has to do with the memes or the archetypes that actually kind of seek attention in the human world or in the world of consciousness, as it were. And we also have to be wary in a way, okay, are these, let's call them entities for the sake of argument. Are these entities interested in just, having our focus or having our attention, or can we actually, learn and progress, and do we really want them in our lives? That's another kind of interesting component in all of this, I think, as well.
Yeah, it's you're right. I feel what I'm getting from you're saying is they're sort of alive. You're realizing that your own aliveness, your own awareness, is not separate from the aliveness and awareness of the things around you, that maybe your way of perceiving is only one way of being, and everything that's happening outside of you is connected to that, intimately involved in that, and there's a relationship between them, a dynamic, fascinating relationship, but it's like they're sort of experiencing them through your eyes. The world is living through you, I mean, in a way it is you. There's no real separation between those things and who you really are beyond things to begin with.
Well, exactly. I mean, it's we talked about that on the show a few weeks ago, the fact that we actually are individually the center of the universe, because if we think about it from our own perspective, I cannot reach out, go out of myself, unless I, go out of body or something like that. But let's leave that to the side for now and just think of the idea of when I'm in my conscious mind, I'm at the center of the universe, and everything that I'm looking around on, is revolving around me. That's just a simple fact if you think about it,
Yeah, and what's interesting about this line of reasoning is that, 2012 and these themes seem to be the synchronicities are becoming more easy to spot, more vivid, more real, and through this process of consciousness awakening, increasing more synchronicities, not because there are more, actually, it's just because we're paying more attention to them now. And you're talking about the center in you, and what we're aligning with is the center of our galaxy, right? So there's sort of this idea that the center in you and the center outside of you, which is probably the same spot,
right,
but they're sort of coming into alignment. So our awareness of the center of who we are, where we are actually located, the center,
yeah,
and it basically the sort of key teaching that you will get from any of these Zen masters or Buddhist type individuals who I tend to look up to, Alan Watts and Eckhart Tolle and all these people who seem to have this amazing connection to that sense of who you are beyond form and thought. It seems to me that this alignment with 2012 is intimately connected to our perception of this, consciousness is becoming aware of itself through us, and the universe itself is like a brain, and the earth and the sun is aligning with the center, and that's just a physical representation of a spiritual reality that's starting to happen inside of us. So it's just the exterior world, the things and all the material things, the internet and Heinrich and Jake and all these things that we see around us are starting to resonate with each other and starting to see how they fit together in this oneness. And this is just interacting with a realization which is in that core, in that center. And as this process is happening, it just so happens that actual physical matter is going through the same process that you can, chart and see on a graph, the age of Aquarius, the alignment with galactic center, and the 9/11 event, and all these interesting external events seem to be there's no difference probably from, actually, I would just come out and say it, there's no difference between what you are seeing and experiencing and what you are and the internal, I'm saying the inside and the outside, your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, your consciousness is exactly what you're embedded in. It is what you are.
Yeah, of course.
It starts to sound like gibberish when you get closer to the core. But that's the point, really, because these things are beyond language and they're beyond thought and form. So when you're getting to the core, it's natural for the words you're saying and the thoughts you're using to start sounding like gibberish, because you're getting to the core where duality and all those concepts are starting to be transcended, and you're moving beyond the limitation of words. So it's, all these things that we're talking about can only point. It's a very Buddhist way of thinking. It can only point, there's a saying about the Buddha, he's pointing to the moon, and that what that's trying to say is that it's not it's not the finger pointing at the moon that the Buddha is trying to wake you up to. It's what he's pointing towards, because you can't, with your mind, the tool that we're using, the thing, which we're saying doesn't actually exist because individual things are just cut-ups, is our mind, right?
Yeah.
So you can't actually grasp the core. It's beyond the grasping. So it's beyond thought and it's beyond form, but you can't point towards it because you are it. That thing that we are trying to find, that thing that we are trying to reach, the goal of all our doing and coming and going is